What's going on, everyone? Josh Rzepka here, and welcome to the fifth installment in my interview series where I spoke with 17 world-class trumpeters. I hope you've been enjoying the series, and if you're new to the series, here's how it goes. In each one of these videos, I present one question, and then you hear the answer to that question by all 17 trumpeters in sequence. As a reminder, here are all the trumpeters that I spoke with in order of appearance in today's video. Arturo Sandoval, Pacho Flores, Lessie Vonner, Michael Sachs, Kenny Rampton, Ingrid Jensen, Karin Bliznik, Randy Brecker, Roger Ingram, Selina Ott, Bijon Watson, Lynch, Tage Larsen, Tine Helseth, Bria Skonberg, Jose Sibaja, and Coletti. So I hope you're ready to be inspired as we dive deep into the thought process, the preparation, and the mindset of these musicians as I ask them the following question. How do you get into the zone before performance? They are offering a lot of incredible advice in this video, so sit back, relax, and let's hear what they had to say.
When I get up in the morning, if I know I have a gig, that's in my blood and in my brain already. I got a gig tonight. Yeah. What I have to do, I have to try my best. No matter what. I have to try my best and I have to give it all on the stage. That's the only thing. And you know, I not even do meditation, concentration, or special kind of state of mind for no. It's part of the natural process that you have to be prepared, and that's the only thing that saved or really made a difference in terms of be ready to do your gig. To be positive that you prepare yourself to do such. You understand what I mean? It's not like you being drinking or having drugs or this and that, and you don't give a shit, and then you jump to the stage and you don't feel that you have your all possibilities and skills together because you weren't you were doing wrong things, you know. But when you know that you are prepared, that gives you a kind of relaxation or confidence that you know that you're gonna do your best. And the first thing you have to do is say, thank God, I got a gig.
I like to be relaxed. The tranquility, you say like this, tranquility. I trust in my daily work, and that is my guarantee to be relaxed for me. I this is my attitude before get into the zone.
Like I've already prepared for the gig and like learned all the music and everything. So like the next step is to whatever I can do to like calm myself down. Sometimes it's watching like random TV shows like Family Guy, like where I don't have to really think about anything. Or sometimes it's just like being by myself on the road. It used to be like going back to the tour bus and like getting in my bunk and just like kind of sitting there and like I guess getting settled. So I guess it's kind of like a meditation. I don't know. I don't really have like a mantra or anything I say, but whatever I can do to just like be still and like kind of go over like what my objective is or like what I'm gonna use this gig to focus on.
I'm basically a frustrated athlete. I would have loved to have been a kicker in the NFL. I would have loved to have played baseball for the Dodgers. You know, I would love to have been like an Olympic pole vaulter. I pole vaulted when I was younger, but I did all right. But nothing anywhere near what those guys do. But I come to it in many ways like an athlete. I mean, in some ways, it allows me to play out that whole part of my personality. And how do I get up for big things? When I was younger, when I was a kid, I loved to kick footballs. I loved to kick field goals. And in front of my house, on one side of the property was a hedge where there was a big tree and then the sidewalk that was about as wide as a goalpost. And then I measured it out going back from that, how far I would kick. And I had 3 footballs, and I would sit there and I would kick field goals. And I'd go from the right hash mark, the left hash mark. I would go back and forth, different lengths and everything. And just that kind of muscle memory repetition and that kind of focus of just a very specific task. Bum, 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 pow, you know? And just, the way just little tweakings and things. There's a total correlation between that and trumpet playing. Or later in life, I got into golf. Same kind of thing. There's a direct relationship between the golf shot and playing the trumpet. I have my lead up exercises that I do before I play. I have my sequences that I do. I don't like being on stage. I've never been a fan of previews, of guys sitting out on stage and knocking out an excerpt like over and over and over and over and over again what they're about to do. And I kind of don't want to be on stage. I want to be in my own world off stage. Just, if I'm playing Mahler 5, just to get my timing together, get my air together, be thinking about the mood I want to set from the beginning of it, be thinking about the piece, be thinking about what it's going to feel like in the moment, trying to capture and transport myself into that imagery. And in many ways is the power of positive thinking, much like an athlete. I mean, if you're a baseball player, not thinking about going up and, being concerned you're going to strike out. You're thinking about the pitcher and how they're going to pitch and, knowing their sequence and looking for that tell. It's like, Kirk Gibson and the home run he hit in the 88 World Series in Game 1. He was looking for the backdoor slider 3-2 from Eckersley because the scout had told him to look for it. That's why when you watch Kirk Gibson, he's up to bat and it goes to 3-2, he steps out of the batter's box for a second because he just remembered the scout telling him, 3-2, Eckersley likes to throw a backdoor slider. So that's what he's looking for, and that's how he hit the home run. So in many ways, I'm trying to get myself in the most positive frame of mind. I'm not thinking about how hard something is or difficult things are. I'm thinking about if challenges lie ahead, here's how I'm going to circumvent them. And for me, it's fun. Playing the trumpet, playing a concert, it's fun. So I like getting amped up. I mean, when I was younger, I'd get a little too amped up. I mean, I would sit there and I would listen to tunes and, I'd get myself all psyched up, like I was like really amped up. And, sometimes I got a little overamped and it didn't hurt me, but I realized that, I was going to stroke out at like 38 if I kept doing that. So, it's like, all right, I got to cool out. It's like, any orchestra season is like 162 games, season for baseball. You can't get too high or too low. So I've got to, get my emotions on a much more even keel. And I've got to get myself in kind of a process of the current, of the process of what's happening in the moment. I can't be worrying about what's already happened. It's already gone. I can't suck it back in and get a mulligan. That's not going to happen. No do-overs. That's already gone. What's happening further in the future, it'll get here soon enough. I can only deal with what's in front of me. What am I doing now and what's next? And it's all cause and effect. So if I can get on a positive trajectory and a positive mindset and a positive trajectory, that's only going to just snowball into good things. So again, it's just, I want to align myself up physically and mentally. And then I like to go out at the last possible moment, sit down, play a couple notes, be in my own world. If I want to talk to somebody, I'll talk to somebody. If I don't, I don't. I'd rather people just kind of let me be. But, everybody's different. I mean, some people, they just talk. They just, that's the way they deal with that energy. Other people do not want to be talked to. I'm probably somewhere in between. Once in a while, I want a little banter, especially if I see the guys are feeling a little uptight. I feel it's part of my job to kind of bring down the stress level and let them see that I'm focused, I'm ready to go. We're going to knock this out. We're going to have a good time, and this is going to be your big success. And just getting into that mind and that vibe, and try to kind of resonate that vibe. So that's, that's how I kind of, get myself prepared for it. I'd say the best way to describe it is just very much like an athlete focusing on a game.
I do some specific breathing exercises that I learned from actually from studying yoga, specifically Kundalini yoga, breathing exercises that help me as a trumpet player. They help me with my breath control, help me with my power as a trumpet player. They help me with my finesse, all aspects, both ends, the power and the soft, the loud and the soft. These breathing exercises, and beyond that, they help me focus and get centered. So before I go on stage, I try and find somewhere where nobody will see me, somewhere, and I'll sit down and close my eyes and do some exercises that are basically come out of yoga breathing techniques, and they help center me, help me to get focused and centered, and to set my intention. And I have a certain, I don't know if you want to call it a prayer of intention or a mantra that I repeat in my mind myself about why I'm performing, why I'm playing, and I ask to be a channel for the greater good, to touch the audience with positivity through music. So I have a certain mantra that I say that I don't know if I've ever said out loud. I don't know if I ever will say out loud, but it's along those lines to really be in tune with what I consider to be the spirit of music, and to help to guide me to be a conduit for that.
I try not to let anything interrupt the zone that I was already in. The old me would take all, go, okay, I got to prepare. Okay, I'm coming on stage. Now it's time to play. Now it's more like, I'd like to be in the zone all day. That's okay. When I wake up, I want to make sure that, like right now, this noisy news cycle, it's huge. We really have a choice to doom scroll and exhaust ourselves with things we can't totally solve, but that we can affect in our actions by changing ourselves. And so it's almost an excuse to take those heavy amounts of chatter and put them at the front of the brain, or to move them to a place where you can be more functional and allow things to happen that are no different than, me going rollerblading with my kid versus picking up the horn and playing in 7 over a bunch of hard chords and overdubbing and feeling like it's connecting. I mean, that's a real extreme, right? It's easy to go rollerblading and go not have to think too much. Like, oh, this is nice. I'm outside, and now how can I get that feeling on the trumpet? Don't bring the stress into the playing of the trumpet. That's the first one. That's the first biggie. And that's a big statement. Yeah, just don't be stressed, have fun. People said things like that to me all my life. It's like, could you elaborate? I could use a little more definition of what that means. Have fun. It's easy to say, oh, just, have fun, get on with it. But, if a person has unresolved trauma, that's the first red flag to go take care of that, because you will not get into the zone. There's no zone. You can get into it for a minute and kind of like get your anger out or get your frustration out. But what you miss in the process is being in tune with yourself and everything around you. This is some deep shit in this music we can do when we play the trumpet, especially the trumpet. I love so much because it's so resonant. There's so many things we can do, dynamic, emotional connections. And the more you work on it, even more there is to work on. And at the same time, it can be that very peaceful feeling of communication that can be translated through, from my window up to the angry, freaked out people across the street to the neighbor next door who's in love with it and wants more. That it can create waves of communication, and I don't want to be corny, but love, and it can transcend all that. And that's the zone I hope I can play in from now on. It's not, I don't want to be proving anything or showing off. Oh, I got a great solo in me. I've been practicing. practice all the time, live the music all the time. And then you don't have to do that so much. You don't have to play from that space of imbalanced ego.
Getting into the zone before you perform is not 5 minutes before the event kind of situation, in my opinion. I think it's quite a process. I read an article not too long ago. I don't know if you list or read it all, with the Bulletproof Musician. The study that they reported on, I thought was most accurate. And it was one which is the physical prep, right? So there's no amount of any type of centering or whatever that will help if you are not prepared, right? So step one has to be, you're going to be able to get into the zone if you're well prepared prior to walking into the situation. Number two is positive self-talk. And that might be something as simple as like a small highlight reel that you might go through, different types of past successes. Number three is planning, which I speak to all my students about this when it comes to, am I auditioning for a music festival coming up soon, a military audition, or am I taking an interview? And what are the dates? What are the requirements? Having all of that well planned out and organized so that you don't feel rushed in that situation, in order to be prepared. And then the fourth one, and this is the one that I think is the best, impression management, which I think basically means acting more confident than you actually are. So we all, I think it's a misunderstanding to think that at a certain point in your career, you will just all of a sudden not have any fear whatsoever of performing. Every single situation is going to be different. All of us as performers are going to have different sensitivities to different types of performances, right? And so all of us are going to need to get in the zone. And for me, finding, I have a small motivational playlist, and it's not classical music, it's different types of pop music, different types of rock music, whatever makes me feel inspired by other musicians that have gone out there and done it so many times. It's like I'm fluffing my feathers up a little bit to walk out on stage and give my energy to the room. I think that's where my focus is usually. There isn't an ideal setup to me prior to performing, but it's pretty rare that you get the opportunity to do exactly what it is that you want to do, right? I mean, ideally for me, I'd love to take a nap at 3 and then maybe go for a run and get some of the additional adrenaline out, and then maybe sit down, have something to eat, get to the hall about an hour early, maybe meditate. I mean, I would love to do all these things. There are some of them that I really try and make sure that I do, but I'll notice, you travel to do small, tours all the time, and that you don't get the opportunity to do it your way most every time. So I think the prior preparation stuff is almost more important than making sure, the hours before, because you usually have less control of that than you do of the longer time frame.
I do a certain amount of warm-ups, but I like quietude, and I don't like seeing people before the gig. So as long as I can get into a room, I even have that in my riders, so that I'm not ensconced in a room with 10 or 15 other musicians all warming up at the same time. For me, there's nothing worse. I just need quietude and solitude. And I can just settle my nerves and settle what else and just start concentrating on the music, warm up on the horn, and that seems to really help.
The zone that is conducive to playing good, I'm never out of the zone for doing that. I mean, as far as mentally preparing myself to go do something, okay, to try to give you some sort of an answer, let's say I'm doing a show at Ravinia and it's kind of a contemporary act, and it's not big band swing. On the car, on the way to the gig, I'll put on some Earth, Wind and Fire, listen to some Jerry Hay type of writing with, that the trio of those guys, the greatest horn tracking trumpet players on the planet. It's like Jerry Hay and Chuck Finley and Gary Grant. I'll listen to them and listen to some Al Jarreau records or something to remind me that's what this is all about. And I'll get into the zone for that gig. When I'm on the way out to go do Pete Elman's band or the New Standard Jazz Orchestra, which are just a couple of the big bands I work with around here, I'll put on Skip Martin's Shahara Jazz and listen to Gazzo. You know, it's just like just straight up Conrad Gazzo. What a great record that was. So I'll put something in, and that gets me in the zone. You know, I play with a couple symphony orchestras in town here now. I mean, since I got off the road, I've developed my skill with C trumpet and E flat trumpet, and you know, and I have the bigger equipment I use. And so if I'm going on to do one of those, I'll put on the, you know, Chicago Symphony or the Philadelphia Orchestra, you know, and if I really want to humble myself, I'll put on, you know, Maurice Andre and all these, you know, unbelievable, you know, Allison Balsam is you know, unbelievable soloists. So I get in the zone on the way there, listening to classical music, you know, so that pretty much, that's the best answer I can give you.
I think it's just that my mindset gets ready for the concert. So I'm like really concentrated and I'm not focused on anything else. It's like the whole day is preparing for the concert. In the morning, I get up, I warm up, and I'm always in the mood that I have to play in the evening the concert. So everything I practice or play is in order to play good in the evening. So I don't practice too much, and you know how it is. And shortly before the concert, I go through the solo piece or whatever I'm playing again, just that I'm really focused on the piece and, you know, get the right mindset for the piece and, yeah, have a natural way of just playing and feeling free on the stage.
For me, and you know, being in the types of gigs that I play, you know, with big bands or whether it's on TV or something like that, I really feel it's important to play in the rehearsal as if you're going to play on the gig. I think that, you know, this concept for me, this concept of holding back and saving something for the gig is fraught with disaster. I think you need to, this goes along with if you're developing a process about how you're approaching to perform, then part of that should be to be able to play the show or play whatever performance you're doing at a high level several times over. That's how I get in the zone, and that's how it allows me to focus. And it also helps me get an understanding of where my chops are at that day. You know, as a trumpet player, I wish I could say my chops feel amazing every day. I would, if someone out there, my colleagues, finds a method to ensure that my chops feel perfect every day, I'll pay it. I will pay it gladly. But that's not always the case. So you have to have a process to understand where your playing is going wrong that day, what you might be able to do to get it back on track, get it aligned again. And so to me, that's very important for performance is getting in the zone by playing in the rehearsal or in the preparation, in the dress rehearsal, whatever, as if you were going to play in the performance.
If I know that I've done my thing, done my routine, then I feel like I can get into the zone pretty easy. It's only when I feel like things are not like working the way that I want them to, or I think if I can ever get anxiety about playing, it'll be more from whether it's going to feel the way that I expect it to feel. I don't want to leave too much up to chance. So that goes back to what I'm doing earlier in the day. If I've done my warm up at 8 in the morning, I can go to the airport, get on a plane, travel all day, go straight from the airport to the sound check, take the horn out of the box, and be ready to hit. Whereas if I wait until just before the gig to warm up, it's never going to be quite right. I feel like I'm set up for the whole day once I'm set up, and maybe it's even had time to like relax and build things up to the kind of steady state you want things to be in. As long as my breathing's good, I think I'm ready to go.
I think about this often because getting into the zone for me is like becoming the sound that I want to perform in my head. And that's based on hearing people, like whether it was Chris when he was here, whether it was like Dave Bilger in Philly, Winton, Phil Smith, like just trying to sound like that, or like a combination of those sounds. So if there's an entrance that I was nervous about, that sort of helped me get over it. If thinking, okay, if I can sound like this, just try to sound like this. It kind of takes your mind in a different place. And like listening to that Shostakovich 7 recording with Philly, that was just so brilliant. Like just to get that beautiful sheen of sound that they would get on that. Can I possibly get there? And then sort of try to take me through the phrase with that idea in mind.
When I was young, it came very natural to me. So I don't know what I did. It just kind of happened. Then that when we were coming closer to a performance, and especially then on the day, then I just started going into this bubble. Of course, feeling nervous, excited about the situation coming up that evening or whenever, and then just really, really try to remember to eat before I don't want to eat anymore, or maybe just have to eat even though you don't want to. And then just starting to get into this where if people ask me questions, I'm normally very talkative and chatty, and but then of course I go to like one syllable answers, yes or no, and then I just go into my bubble without doing anything to do it. It just kind of happens. And also on many occasions, I've done this for quite a while now. I'm 33 and since I was 18, so it's been a long time, and on many occasions it's also been a safe zone for me to go into. This is something I know, some place where I can just exist on stage with the trumpet and the musicians around me without thinking of everything else going on outside of the bubble. So on those occasions it's very easy to do it because it's like not an escape, but almost, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm here, now I can just focus on this. And sometimes it's a bit harder work to like, okay, come on, now you're gonna don't think about or just try to get into this. Now you're going on stage in half an hour, you have to be at least a little bit focused before you go in, but mostly it kind of happens naturally. With experience, it's also a bit like when you really need to be in the zone and when it's actually okay to think about something else, and it will still go okay or even great or amazing. It's like I think you get that experience, and I'm the only one who knows me, and then you are the only one who know you, kind of how it works. So I think there's no right or wrong, but the best it's easiest if it just happens naturally.
Honestly, I think I don't really get into the zone until I have to be at the venue with all my stuff laid out, organized, no other distractions. I think a warm up is a beautiful part of that process. To be honest, I do my hair and my makeup before the gig too. That's a very sort of Zen process. I like silence as much as possible. I drink some tea. It sounds very kind of diva-esque at this moment, but that's what I like. It doesn't happen all the time. Once again, it'd be great to have an hour or two before each gig to get in the zone. Sometimes you have literally 2 minutes. So it's a very quick version of that routine. But I, again, just try to relax, maybe do some breathing exercises, calm the nerves, focus. I like going through my set list and imagining the things that we're going to play, that we're going to see. Visualization, I think, is a good way to warm yourself up for a gig. And then just remind myself how lucky I am to be doing what I do. and that there's a whole bunch of people out there that are going to have an experience, and so are we. So it just gets me excited.
For me, getting in the zone starts from the beginning of the day. I've been lucky enough to be performing for a long, long time in one scenario or a different scenario, or in pop music or in classical music, or being a soloist or playing with a quintet or whatever it is. The whole day I'm trying to get psyched up for that moment, for the moment of being on stage. I try to not take it for granted ever. I try to understand that this is a gift that we have, and that we're able to share, to be able to share with the world is even a bigger gift. So I'm always thinking about it, trying to hype myself up for it. And then if you want a more specific answer, um, I start to really block the world outside my surroundings, maybe an hour and a half before. I may joke around, I may be doing things, I may be talking to people, but I'm focused 100% on what's about to happen. And there's a countdown that happens in my head. It's different at times. Really, sometimes it affects the way you feel. Meaning, if you are in Asia and you arrived 2 days earlier and you're falling asleep before the performance, or if you are in Europe, and you just had a huge lunch, or anything like that. It all depends. I try to be. I'm not really completely dialed in or completely uh, strict about my routine before a concert. I try not to eat too much. That's all. I try not to eat anything that will make my chops swell up, like anything super spicy or super hot. Um, that's basically it. I've learned with the years that sometimes too much coffee is not good. Um, but that's basically it. And what I do really take in importance in, it's in making sure that I'm always singing in my head before the gig, making sure that I'm always in tune like that.
I've had a couple of things that really work. I'll speak of Canadian Brass because that was a very, collegial thing. We knew each other really well. We traveled everywhere, literally with each other. And the concerts that we played the best were always the ones where we were really hanging out and just chatting, even if it wasn't about music, but we were like the vibe was great. It wasn't necessary, you could be in your hotel room until, and then no warm up and walk on stage. It was fine. But those always seem to really be the ones that had magic on stage. But that's really hard to control. And if you're if you're like gigging and you're not always playing with the same people, then that's really not possible. So I found that meditation is super helpful. And there's a bazillion, I'm sure a lot of people say something like that. And there's just so many different methods, but ultimately you're just trying to get in touch with yourself. And it's sort of like a golf warm up where just focus on hitting the ball like that far, and then this far, and then that far. It's just like keep yourself, like you're training yourself to focus like that. And then in that simple act of hitting a golf ball as small, by the way, I don't golf. I hope this is an analogy that's actually true, but I think it is. In that simple act of just hitting it at farther and farther lengths distances while keeping that focus, like effortlessly, by the way, you start observing your brain trying to sabotage itself. It's really jarring, but you don't want the first time you notice that to be on stage, which is what happens to almost all of us. I mean, I know a few people that don't need to do anything. They're just like confident, natural. They're just going to do it. And it's just not the way most people are. So if you're not like that, don't feel ashamed. That doesn't mean if you're horrified on stage, that's your natural inclination. That's fine. You just have to be willing to put in extra work to counter that. And so that for me has been so helpful. I'm a hyper guy. And so I think just anything that's calming is helpful for me too. But I'm sure everyone can relate to the hyper awareness that happens when you're suddenly in the spotlight. And unless you're a full-time performer, you don't get used to that by doing it every day. So you need to figure out how to either practice simulating that somehow. One way is really helpful, by the way, is another answer to the question is you can easily mimic the physical reactions you'll get on stage by just doing a few push-ups or whatever is the equivalent of your fitness level. And just so you're not out of breath, but like your heart rate's elevated, and then try to play a hard excerpt, try to play a hard piece, try to take a solo. It's gonna affect it. And if you can feel comfortable despite that, you're good.
Wow, what incredible advice. I hope you've been enjoying this series. And if you have, why don't you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next video? And while you're at it, why don't you leave a comment and let me know, what piece of advice did you hear that resonated the most with you today? I really took a lot from all of these answers as there was so much fantastic advice. However, there were some common themes, including preparation, visualization, peacefulness, and intention. And I think that is terrific advice, and not just for playing the trumpet. Now, speaking of advice, in the next video, I asked the following question. What advice would you give a younger version of yourself? Yeah, you're gonna wanna hear what they had to say. Some of it just might surprise you. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanna thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.